Awesome. All right, here we go. Welcome, everyone, to the You-est You Podcast. This is Julie Riesler. I am your host, and I am so freaking excited for today's episode. You guys need to strap in your seatbelts. You are in for a serious fun ride. We have a legend today who is joining us, and we have it today both in video and audio. I want to introduce you to Christopher Lochhead. Christopher started his first company at 18. He has been called the human exclamation point by Fast Company and off-putting to some by The Economist. He is a badass keynote speaker. He's a blogger. He has his own podcast, Legends and Losers, and he is a founding member of the nonprofit One Life Fully Lived. He has served as Chief Marketing Officer of software juggernaut Mercury Interactive, which was acquired by Hewlett-Packard in 2006 for $4.5 billion. He's co-founded marketing consulting firm Lochhead, was the founding CMO of Internet consulting firm Scient. I'm probably saying half these words wrong. Chris, you're gonna have to help me later. And has served as head of marketing of Vantive, a CRM software firm. He's a dyslexic paperboy from Montreal with Scottish roots. Over 30 years in business, he has earned with a PhD from the School of Hard Knocks, drank a ton of whiskey, experienced the bliss of winning, the pain of failure, and learned how to laugh about the whole damn thing. He loves family and friends, thinks the Ramones are legendary, believes George Carlin was right, and loves riding the mountains and waves of Northern California. This is Christopher. You'll have to say what you go by. I'm so freaking excited to have you here. You are a legend and someone I've learned so much from, and I'm so excited that we get to hear you today. Thanks for being here.
Well, Julie, thank you so much for having me, and that introduction will make my mom really happy, so thank you.
All right. Did I say anything wrong? I should have asked you ahead of time. You go by Christopher.
I don't care. My wife calls me you fucker, so whatever you prefer.
He's really freaking funny, y'all. I just want to tell you that before this all started, I already have been laughing and swearing way more than usual. So just so you know, if you got little people, put on some earphones, put their earmuffs on, or listen to this later, maybe at the gym, not while they're listening.
You know what I have found?
Yeah.
You know what I found about that, Julie? Not to interrupt you, but
Yeah, go for it.
I have a ton of children in my life, and I swear like a pirate, and so does my wife, Carrie. And I had to marry her because she's the first woman I met that actually swears as much and maybe even more than I do. Anyway, so even though we're not parents, we have lots of children in our lives, and we talk the way we talk. And children are smart. They know that you can't, if you're 8 years old, you can't show up at school and say to Mrs. Johnson, here's my fucking homework. That's not going to work, right? So it's interesting. I'm sure it's not everybody's perspective per se, but there's really no problem with swearing in front of kids because kids are smart.
It's so true.
It's not like they haven't heard this stuff before. I mean,
right.
Come on.
Right.
But I digress.
No, you're so right. I have a 10 and 11-year-old. And what's so funny is I'm always mindful of what I'm saying. And then all of a sudden they're like, hey, Mom. And they'll be like, I heard this shit today. And I'm like, what? Where are you hearing this? I'm like, oh, right. Because it's not me. They're hearing it everywhere else. Hello.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, my gosh. It's so fun. I'm so honored to have you. All right. Well, right out of the gate, one of the questions I like to ask about, and I'm curious for you. I mean, there's so much to talk about with what you've done and who you are in the world and what you've created. I'm curious that the topic of, the name of the show is the You-est You. And I'm curious, what has it taken to become your You-est You? And is there ever been a time where you felt like you were not being your authentic self or your You-est You? I'm just kind of curious because you, at this point, we're going to get into all the stuff you've done and who you've been. I just always like to ask that and get a sense.
So, for the most part, I've spent the majority of my life being me. And that's, I find a much easier way to be. I love the old Michelangelo quote where they supposedly asked him how he created his famous sculpture of David. And he said, it was easy. All I did was remove everything that wasn't David. And so I've spent my life trying to remove everything that's not me. And the times in my life where I've experienced pain, not everyone, but many of them are caused by trying to be something that I'm not, or said in a different way, trying to be a particular way around somebody or some group of people because you think that'll make it better or whatever. And then you, of course, it doesn't. And so, yeah, I've always tried to be me. The big change, I think, for me on this one was when I was a kid and first started in business. I started at 18. I got thrown out of school for being stupid and started a company. And for the first little while, I sort of played. It's like playing the doctor on TV. You know, I was like playing a business person, playing. I didn't know the word entrepreneur back then, I don't think, but like trying to play the role of what I thought a business executive was supposed to be. And that really didn't work. And the minute I sort of said, you know, F that, I'm just going to be how I am, things got better.
I love the whole idea that you, first of all, you didn't have to know what entrepreneur meant, but that at 18, you know, just that you started then, and the idea that it's kind of like, don't worry about anybody else or what anyone else is doing. Like, stay in your lane and just stay there. And I know, you know, even talking, I would love to talk more about what you're teaching the world around niching down, your new book and creating a category. And it sounds like for you, you've done that so successfully by just staying true to really who you are.
Well, I've tried to. It's very kind of you to say. I think there are some people who just naturally somehow find their place in the world, and there is a place for them. You know, they as a child, they're drawn to a certain thing. Maybe it's math, or maybe it's art. You know, whatever it is, and you know, they become an accountant, or they become a painter, or whatever. You know, whatever the thing is, right? And so there's some people who very early on they sort of find their place in the world. And then they follow a very clear path, and it kind of works. And if you're one of those people, God bless you. I'm not one of those people. And so I'm someone for whom, you know, if you sort of think about life, in a lot of ways, life is an ongoing experiment where we try something, go, oh, is this me? Oh, no, I hate pickles. Pickles are clearly not me. Okay, great. And then, you know, then we try different things. We go, oh, that is me. That's not me. And so life, on one dimension is sort of trying, experimenting with things to trying to figure out what is you and what isn't you. And I think there's some of us who, particularly as younger people, is absolutely the case for me, Julie, there was no place in the world for me.
Yeah.
I didn't fit in school. I had a terrible academic track record. And I knew there was something more for me than just manual labor jobs. And I was always drawn to business. I was a paperboy. But it became clear that unlike some people who find their place in the world, I had to make my place in the world.
Mm. You know, a lot of the people that are listening in, I know that we have a lot of both entrepreneurs and those that are thinking about leaving their 9-to-5 job. I'm thinking of a few people that have written in, and I try to create episodes that really help guide those that are thinking like, I want to make that leap. I want to go from somebody else's business to something that I'm really passionate about. And I'm just curious, because I think what you just said is so important, that it didn't exist. You had to create who you are. There wasn't a blueprint for you. It's kind of what I'm hearing.
Yeah, and of course, I learned from others, and you know, we learn by mimicking in the beginning, and then we develop our own skills and capabilities and style and stuff. But there wasn't a natural place for me. There was no job for me. I didn't fit in the education system. My whole life, you know, I hear things like Christopher's too much, or, you know, I don't fit in the world. And so when you don't fit in the world, and, you know, you can feel like an alien, you can feel like, you can feel very different.
Mm-hmm.
And I think different is a very good thing, but you can feel different in a negative way. And, you know, there's that old Kermit the Frog song, "It's not easy being green." You know, and in a world where no one else is green and you're green, it can feel daunting. That said, here was the big aha that I've had. If you think of every person, every artist, every singer, every entrepreneur, every scientist, any domain you want to think about, that you and I truly respect and admire, your favorite people, the people you really look up to, they have a few things in common. And one of them is they're unique. One of them is they took or broke new ground.
Mm.
And the big one is that they are different. And in a lot of ways, my biggest dream in life is that one day people will discover that being better is something that's incremental, and being different is the way you access what makes you exponentially more powerful. And I think we live at a time where we need more people who are willing to be unique, who are willing to be different, and who are willing to access the exponential power of what makes them different versus the incremental power of what makes them better. And so in that regard, I think a lot of that has to do with not just making your own place in the world, but also making the world a materially better place to live, because we need big breakthroughs today more than ever. We need people to stand up and be innovative and be creative. We have big problems that we need to solve as a country, as a society, as a world. And we need legendary people who are willing to have the courage to stand up and solve those problems and be truly unique.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more with you. And I think I like to think of it that we all came here with unique, specific talents, gifts, skills to be expressed, and that's kind of the whole idea with the idea of your You-est You. Everyone has their own version of that. That's a unique thumbprint. And by me trying to be somebody else, I mean, I've done life like that, and it sucks and it doesn't work. And you know that if everyone was sort of in their sweet spot of their frankly, you know, living out their legendary best lives, that would be a whole different place. That's kind of what I'm hearing you say. It's certainly my belief, and that the world's calling for that right now too. That we're looking for that. We need that.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think on a personal level, why it's right is we are drowning in inauthentic bullshit like never before.
Mm.
You know, whether it's the Kardashians or CEOs or politicians, or, you know, there's all in the entrepreneur world, there's all these idiot, I call them entrepreneur porn stars, who just puke out this stupidity around hustle, 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 and follow your passion and all this problematic garbage that is actually, I think, very hurtful, not helpful. And so we're just surrounded in more and more inauthentic bullshit. And for every action, of course, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And so I have chosen to believe that authenticity is the new black, that it's what you and I crave in each other. The people that you love the most in the world are probably the most authentically themselves. And certainly the people we admire the most are that way. And the more, for every Kardashian ass selfie, the value of being real, the value of being yourself, the value of authenticity goes up. And then in a business world, it's the difference between success and failure.
Mm. Can you say more? I'm curious about that. I am in the same, I believe the same thing about authenticity. It's funny. I say I'm often on a social media diet. It's the only diets I do. Like, I try not to, you know, more power, blessings to everybody, but the Kim Kardashian photo, like, I just try not to kind of put that in my diet because it doesn't add value to who I am as a human being. And I think I totally agree with this craving need for authenticity. I'm super curious. You started to talk about kind of how you marry that with business and how that's the only way. Maybe just your thoughts on that, and then what you've seen from your extensive background as, you know, with being the leading expert on marketing, and how authenticity plays into success and making a difference.
that you're giving me way too much credit. I don't know that I'm the leading authority on marketing, but thank you.
Maybe one of them.
Here's the big aha for me. Yeah, maybe I'm one of them. What I would say is here's the big aha. So if you put this conversation in a business context, the most legendary business people, the most legendary youpreneurs, solopreneurs, the most legendary, I lovingly refer to them as small E entrepreneurs, typically people who start with very little and build something, as distinct from big E entrepreneurs who are the sort of the Silicon Valley types who raise hundreds of $1 million and try to become the next Google and so forth. Regardless of who you want to talk about and at whatever level you want to talk about them, what made them successful was they were unique and they became known for a category, a niche that they own. So let me give you a specific example. There's a gal named Deborah Sterling, and she grew up in the engineering product design world. She graduated from Stanford in 2005 and as an engineer. And she loved playing with her brother's construction toys when she was a kid, like mechanosets and this kind of stuff. So she wanted to give the same thing to girls in her life. And she went looking, and there were no toys that were of that ilk, if you will, for young girls. And she couldn't believe it. And so she decided to, if you will, niche down and start a company. They call them STEM toys. And STEM, if I'm remembering right, stands for science, technology, engineering, and I think math.
Yeah.
So she created a STEM toy company for girls. The entire toy industry said, this is going to fail. Girls are never going to play with this stuff. She was rejected by Y Combinator, one of the big accelerators out here in Silicon Valley. The world said, we don't want you're different. And oh, by the way, not only that, it's not going to work. So she did what every legendary entrepreneur does who sees a missing, sees a problem, and it goes on a mission. My friend Eddie Yoon, the incredible author of Super Consumers, read his book. It's a mind blower. He's a genius. He says there's a distinction in entrepreneurship between mercenaries and missionaries. Mercenaries don't make it because sooner or later they can't take crawling through glass. Missionaries crawl through flaming glass if needed. And Debbie's one of those people. So anyway, long story longer, she starts a company called Goldie Blocks, from Goldie Locks, but with like blocks, like playing blocks. And she's become an incredibly successful entrepreneur, and little girls and actually little boys all around the world now play with Goldie Blocks. And so she's a great example of a niche down. She's a great example of becoming known for a category that you can own. She took new ground. She saw a missing. She saw a problem. She put herself on a mission to solve that problem. And now, not only does the whole world sort of get it, she sold more than 1 million toys worldwide.
Wow.
She even helped the Girl Scouts of America develop a STEM merit badge for young ladies. And so my point is, legendary entrepreneurs get on a mission. They're missionaries, like Eddie talks about. And specifically, they niche down. They become the designer of a new way of thinking about things, doing things, and most specifically, a new way of looking at a problem and therefore a solution. And then they go out and they evangelize that problem. And then when the world goes, oh, yeah, hey, how come there are no STEM toys for girls? This is bullshit. Right. They start buying those STEM toys for girls. And because she made great toys and she evangelized a completely unique new category of toy, bam, a million toys later.
That's such a great example. I've heard of Goldie Blocks. I didn't know the story. It's so, I love that concept of being a missionary and that they're, mercenary, missionary. And to me, it sounds like what you're also saying is underneath it, it's that that deep, deep knowing that this, you can't sleep until this is solved, until this is out there.
Yes. And I'd be curious to ask you this question. When I have been in those missionary places in my life, and I spent a lot of my life in that place, and I kind of am very much living in that place right now, I need a new word for work.
Yeah.
Because, and I know this sounds like self-help, you know, you've been living on the West Coast too long, bullshit. I know it does. But it also happens to be the reality. If you are on a mission, if you love what you're doing, and you are, you're, if you will, I like to think of it as you're following your different, right? And you're making, look, the truth is the people who are different are the ones that make the biggest difference, right? So if you're following your different and you're making a difference as a result of it, there's nothing more satisfying in life other than a good, scotch and doing the cuddle with your, whoever you like to do the cuddle with, and maybe a good surf. You know, those things are all sort of scotch, surfing, sex, and skiing. I guess all the S's, kind of. But I digress, Julie. The point being, if you're on a mission and you're living your different, you're doing your different, and your different begins to make a difference if you have the ability to stick with it long enough, and it can take quite a while, as you well know. There's nothing more rewarding, and it doesn't feel like work. We are just now putting the final touches on our new book, Niche Down, and I put a post on Facebook yesterday. I don't want it to end because I don't want to not be writing this book with Heather Clancy. Like I love writing this book with Heather Clancy, and I don't want to not be writing this book with Heather Clancy, right? Well, when you're in that place, you're not working. With Legends and Losers, then people ask me all the time, how do you decide who comes on? Well, do I have physical pain in my body regarding my need to have a conversation with them? Like, am I dying to talk to this person about whatever the thing is? And if the answer is yes, then I want them on Legends and Losers. And if the answer is I'm not like batshit dying to talk to this person, then no. Why would I have them on the podcast?
Yeah.
And that's not work when you do that. It's like surfing's not work either. And I have the same, level of enthusiasm for writing and podcasting and the few companies that I work with, and, the other things I do in my life that I do for surfing or skiing or all the other S's. And so I think if you're lucky enough, if you've been able to co-create a life with people you love where that's true.
That's awesome. I'm just sitting here. I'm like, hey, yeah, hell yeah. Like it's funny with the word work. I just was thinking that like, it's not a good word because it insinuates that there's some sort of, well, what is it? Effort and strenuous stress. And I'm listening to you talk about your book, which I'm excited to get. I saw that Facebook post and I'm like, that's so freaking awesome. He doesn't want the book to end. Like that to me, when you think of work.
I'm not done. I don't want to stop this book. And Heather and I have started talking. I think we're just going to have to start immediately writing another book because it's just not okay with me to not be writing a book with her.
Yeah. I was like, there's obviously another book after this book, clearly. Because
I actually have two more sort of on the drawing board. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Can you share a little more about that?
I'm not sure which one to do next, but yeah, I would love to. One of them is about the learnings from so many of the amazing guests we've had on Legends and Losers. We've had everybody from NBA legend Bill Walton. He's been with us twice, and he's just this new gift in my life that is just remarkable. To Sebastian Junger, the author of Perfect Storm, and more recently Tribe. I think Tribe is one of the 10 most important books written in the last decade. It is an absolute must read. Sebastian Junger, Tribe. It will change the way you think about our society. To, so many incredible entrepreneurs and CEOs, CEO of $15 billion Splunk, Doug Merritt, Jeff Hoffman, who I think legendary billionaire entrepreneur. He's in the One Life world. Of course, Hal Elrod himself, John Vroman, John Berghoff. I mean, just incredible people. Convicted murderer turned inspirational poet, Will Little. We recently dropped an episode with Nancy Fund. She's a venture capitalist. She's the creator of a whole new paradigm, a whole new niche. She pulled a niche down in venture capital called impact investing. And her firm is called Double Bottom Line Partners. And her whole mantra is, there's the economic bottom line, and then there's the other bottom line, which is, are you making a difference in the world? And so she's done a lot of environmental things and social things. And for example, she's the seed investor in Tesla. She's the seed investor in Solar City. So her and Elon Musk have done a lot of incredible things together. And on and on and on. I could talk about our guests forever. And so there's a million learnings in there that need to get synthesized and kind of put together. So we're beginning that. And then on another note, I have another book we're sketching out right now with my friend Ben Ruiz, and hopefully Heather will join us on this one as well. And the working title, and I think this may end up being the title, Julie, is called "What the Fuck is Wrong with Men?"
That's awesome.
Yeah. And I don't know about you. I'm sure it's true for you. I have hit a breaking point with all these mass killings.
Yeah.
My wife Carrie is a high-end event planner. She was the COO of the march here in San Francisco.
Oh wow!
After the horrible killings in Parkland, her and this incredible gal who's a doc in San Francisco put this whole thing together. 40,000 people. It was incredible. And watching her do that was incredibly moving. Being there for it was incredibly moving. All the speakers that day were kids. When you understand what it is to be a kid today, which is you're 5 years old and you have to get trained how to deal with a mass shooter at your school. And then several weeks ago now, I guess over 2 months ago now, this asshole in Toronto rented a vehicle and drove it up Yonge Street, which is the busiest street in Toronto. And he killed, I forget how many people, but many people. And he was specifically targeting women. And so whenever these things happen, I just find myself screaming and crying and yelling at the TV and, going to the gym and hitting a heavy bag. And the mantra in my head is, what the fuck is wrong with men?
Yeah.
And so I started to look. I thought, something's really wrong with men in our world. So I started to look, has anybody done sort of a 360 analysis of what the fuck is wrong with men? And I couldn't find one. So I thought, I have to write this book. And when you start to dig into the facts about what's going on with men in our world now, it's actually really terrifying. And I can get into it in any level of detail you want. But I think the first step to solving a problem is to frame the problem and to frame it as accurately as possible. And so we're going to try to frame the problem. I don't profess to, know the solutions. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a sociologist. I'm not a doctor. I'm completely unqualified to be talking about this or writing about this. But what I am is a guy, and what I am is a guy who stands for people's well-being. And I'm also somebody who can't take this violence anymore. And I know there's structural problems in our world that are causing this. I'm sure you saw this, Julie, last week. The CDC came out and said there's been a 30% increase in suicides in America since 1999.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
And so there's a problem. And we, like I said, we can get into some of the things I've been learning, but I think we need to frame that problem very clearly and as accurately as possible in a research-based, fact-based way. And then I think we need to have a societal discussion, a no bullshit discussion about what the fuck is wrong with men and what collectively we think can be done about it.
Damn, that is so powerful. First of all, thank you for sharing your next book. I know Niche Down hasn't even come out yet. I love that
Niche Down comes out in July.
I love it. I kind of relate on a different level, not this level yet, but it's like just okay, I've got this one and this one, but I think, first of all, the idea of sharing what you've learned from your host, I would read that in an instant. I love your podcast. I love what you put out there. And
Thank you.
Oh yeah, no, and I'm like, I want to say, everyone listening, you should be also for sure listening to Legends and Losers. In fact, I highly recommend it. Even if you need to pause this and go to listen to one of Chris's, do that. It's funny. I'm interviewing Jeff next week, Jeff Hoffman, and well, he's also an inspirational dude, and you just
Oh
have a
my God.
way.
I love him. I love Jeff Hoffman.
He's amazing. He's amazing. But you have I mean, talk about authenticity. It's one of the things that I was so attracted by you is just you said the no bullshit, authentic, conversations. And I think your idea of, the what the fuck is wrong with men, it's fascinating to me. This is sort of a different angle of it, but one of the things I've been really fascinated by or interested in is the idea that we have both male and female energy, and but that this is a different angle, but really looking at how do I live my life. I sort of have the goal oriented action doing, which is more that male energy down, but what about that, the receptive and the going internal and the kind of more of what you would think of as feminine energy. And I would be curious, this is less science-based, but to me there's sort of that missing, I think, of having more of a balance, because we want to have both, kind of the yin and yang. So I don't know what you'll find out, but I'm curious. And I would read that book like yesterday. Have every man I know read, everyone, not just men. I mean, I think that's a real powerful question.
Yeah, and there's some very, very stunning information, I think, that most people don't know. I'll give you one of the early ones that we discovered. What percentage of children in America grow up in what we used to call a nuclear family, a father and a mother and siblings?
What percentage am I guessing? Today, you mean, or
right now in America, what percentage have
wow,
a mom and a dad?
I'm going to guess 30.
Yeah, I forget the exact number. I think it's 23%. It's less than 25 and more than
Wow.
20. So it's somewhere in there like 23.2 or 22.3, or it's a number like that.
It's low.
But it's a stunningly low number.
Yeah.
Another one that's kind of interesting to me is when I was a kid, roughly 50% of the teachers were male and 50% were female. Today in America, and we have one source on this, but I don't love the source, so we're trying to see if we can find a more credible source, but it seems to check out when I talk to people. Roughly 80% of the preschool and elementary teachers are female now. Mm. And so what we have is a situation where boys are growing up in a world without men. We have Ritalin, we have no bullying, you got to sit there and shut up. And so you just have this whole world that they're growing up in where being a little boy is not cool, and there's no male role models around. And one of the things when I talk to younger men, particularly younger millennial men, over a beer or a scotch, they admit they don't know what it means to be a man. They don't know what it's like to be a man. I had a 28-year-old professional fighter. Like, this guy's a professional badass. And he said to me, look, I didn't grow up with a father. I don't have many guy friends. I don't know how to be friends. I don't know how to be a man with other men. I don't know how to be. I'm like standing there looking at this giant fighter who could, end my life with one move. And he's being completely open and honest about this. And so there's a real confusion for men. There's a real lack of authentic conversation around this topic. There's some that are driving conversation. I think that's great, but I think we as a culture have to have a much bigger conversation. And I also think we need to have a conversation about man that is 1,000% inclusive of a conversation about men with women. My only criticism of the Me Too movement is, as a man, I have felt for the most part excluded from the dialogue. And I don't want to be excluded from that dialogue. And so, but I feel like I got to insert myself, and I'm not sure it's okay. And, like if you're not a woman, you can't care about that. Well, that's just not true. And so I also think it's important to have dialogue around the fact that we as a culture are making more good women than men. There's just no other way to look at it. Women are doing better in education. I saw a story today that said female founders build companies that are grow faster, are more profitable, and less capital intensive than male founders. Boys are being left behind in school. The numbers are terrifying. Young men under the age of 30, approximately 25 of them have completely opted out of the workforce. They're just not participating. And the thing that really put me over the top, Julie, was this sick asshole in Toronto who ran over these people was purposely targeting women. And I'm going to use the phraseology of today, he identifies as an incel. Have you heard of these?
No, I've not actually. I'm psyched to learn something new. Not psyched about the concept, but no. I want to hear about it.
So I had never heard of them either. Go check out incel, INCEL.me. Incel is short for involuntary celibate.
Okay.
I was like, what? And this is a fancy new age way of saying, hey, I can't get laid. I'm an incel.
I'm not a priest, but I'm
exactly.
Right.
And I look at it and go, well, number one, become a person of substance and somebody who's interesting or funny or engaging, somebody that women would want to be around, point A. And point B, learn how to play guitar, right? I mean, do the things that we had to do. When I was 13, I had to figure out how to get girls to like me. It's like, remember Napoleon Dynamite? Remember that movie?
Yeah, I do.
There's that hysterical scene in the movie where the one dude looks at the other dude and he goes, girls like guys with skills. I think we need to get some skills. But all kidding aside, there is now a group of young men who openly on the internet, of course they do it anonymously, so maybe not so openly, but are angry at women. They blame women for the fact that they are not having sex. Some of them don't believe rape is a crime. And it gets weirder and weirder and weirder from there. And so this is a problem. We need to talk about this. This is not okay. Did I just lose you with all of that, Julie?
No. I'm like, so what was going through my head, my brain is behind everybody is a story and something going on. So I'm thinking like, what the heck happened or is going on with them? These people that would get to that point. So obviously rejection or no father, no male figure. I mean, how someone could even, if they're not, choosing it because they're in the priesthood or for a monk, some reason like that, to even think that it was hard for me to get my head around what you were saying. Because that is so, to me, out of the realm of, compassionate humanity, kind of it's crazy. And it's frankly sounds borderline mentally ill. But that's scary that's becoming, almost part of our new mainstream.
It is. And we are an incredibly lonely society. The number of people in our country on some kind of happy pill is extraordinary.
Yeah.
The average male in America doesn't make a friend past college. Get your head around that. The other thing, there was a study that came out recently. We're just amassing all of this data that says that if a 50-year-old man has one good friend other than his spouse, your spouse doesn't count in this context. Not to say you shouldn't be great friends with your spouse, but if a 50-year-old man has one good friend, his life is extended by approximately 25%. Wow. And the absence of one good friend from a health point of view and a longevity point of view is more damaging than smoking or obesity.
Wow.
And so we are lonely. The other thing is we are fat.
Yeah.
The average woman now weighs what the average man weighs. The average woman weighs 165 pounds in America. That used to be what the average man weighs. The average man weighs 195 pounds in America. Now I weigh $195, but I'm 6 feet. The average American man is 5'7", 5'8".
Yeah.
So one of the graphs that we're building for this work is we're graphing the growth of the internet, the growth of gaming, and the growth of men, how fat we're getting. And there, if you look at that graph, it's actually very scary. Here's another one. You ready for this? Worst job in America. You know what that is? Military recruiter. Walk into a recruiting office and ask the people recruiting for the military, how's it going? Guess what? We are not recruiting new people into the American military, new men. You know why? The average American man can't do 10 push-ups. The average American 20-year-old man can't do 10 push-ups. They are physically not able to do it because they are overweight and they do nothing athletic. Wow. If you are a military recruiter, the ones I've talked to, they have to go to high schools, go to community colleges and universities and seek out where are the athletes, where are the wrestlers, where are the boxers, where are the rugby player, et cetera, because they can't. And in some cases, young men who want to join the military, the recruiters in their spare time, on their own dime, are putting together boot camps, for 3 months to try to get these guys in shape so that they can pass the basic test. Because we don't go outside, we don't put down our phones, we don't exercise. And literally, I know this sounds insane, but I've talked to military people and they say the obesity and the lack of motivation to do this kind of work is now becoming a threat to American safety.
Wow. Jeez, I've never heard it put that way. I know quite a bit about obesity and health issues just from my background, but I never thought of it like how it's affecting literally our military the recruitment. That makes a lot of sense.
Well, and in particular, our special forces.
Yeah,
it's an acute problem with special forces. It's way less of a problem for military software coders. But Navy SEALs, Army Rangers, et cetera, very hard to find young people who are up to that.
God, it's really.
I could go on, but the problem with men is a real problem, and I think we need to have powerful conversation. I think we need to have no bullshit conversation. I think there's things that men don't talk about. Here's another big aha. Women tend to have what psychologists call face-to-face relationships. So they do what you and I are doing. Gals sit down, look each other in the eye over coffee, over Chardonnay or whatever you like.
You're so funny.
In San Francisco, they call Chardonnay cougar juice.
That's great.
But you gals talk to each other, right?
Yeah.
Like my wife leaves the house and 5 minutes later, my phone goes off and it's her. And I always pick up the phone and say, hi, baby. You want to talk about it some more, don't you? Whatever it is. It might just be what we're up to today. It might not be anything significant, but she's not done talking, right? And all the studies about how many more words women use than men and all that stuff. So women have face-to-face relationships. They talk to each other. Men have what psychologists call shoulder-to-shoulder relationships. We do stuff together. And it can be somewhat transactional. Hey, Brad, I got to put together a new shed. Can you help me? Okay, great. We come together and we help each other put together the shed. Ta-da, and then the shed gets built and we have a beer and maybe I don't talk to Brad for another 2 or 3 weeks, right? Or, me and my buddies, we go surfing together. So men tend to do stuff together. And if men are going to have face-to-face relationships, it almost always comes from shoulder-to-shoulder relationships. That is to say, you build a shed, you go for a surf, and you say, hey, you want to have a burrito or a beer afterwards? But even in those situations, most men don't look each other in the eye and say, hey, you know what? Things are going really badly at work. I need to talk to you about that. You almost never hear men say that. And so there's got to be a way for men to have a breakthrough and understand this dynamic and begin to use their shoulder-to-shoulder relationships to have more face-to-face conversation, right?
It makes a lot of sense. It's so fascinating because I'm thinking, it doesn't occur to me as a female and somebody who's pretty extroverted, and I'm laughing because your wife, I mean, that sounds like me. It's the minute I'm out with somebody, I'm always calling my husband like, I want to tell you more about it. More to say, but the idea of that shoulder to shoulder, and I'm thinking even, with the horrible recent, the suicides that we're seeing, honestly, it's like lack of connection. And so you put it all together. I mean, more overweight, more isolated, less connected, and not having role models. It's not a good scene. We're not heading in
Yes.
the right direction. I appreciate what you're saying. I'm thinking about this in new ways, and I think your book, I mean, has to come out. You have to do it.
That's how I feel about it. I just think it's an important conversation.
Yeah.
I didn't see anybody having a conversation, that's not fair. There are some great people having a conversation about men right now.
Yep.
And some of them are happening at scale, but we need to scale this conversation a lot more.
Yeah.
And some of the places that this sort of how to be a man, what is a man, what the fuck's wrong with men, all these sorts of conversations about men that are taking place feel to me, and again, I'm not a woman, so I don't know for sure, but they feel a little exclusive of women, the way the Me Too movement makes me feel.
Yeah.
And so the other thing that, my buddy Ben Ruiz and I are going to go to work on this together after Niche Down comes out. But the other thing Ben and I want to be able to do is have a conversation, have podcasts, write, and do it in a way that is 100% transparent with women. And ideally that women are part of the dialogue. This is not a men's group. It's a men's issue. And I think we as a society need to fix it. I also think we have, if you read Tribe, or if you, I highly recommend check out Legends and Losers with Sebastian Junger. He wrote the book Tribe. We unpack what Sebastian thinks is wrong societally. And I'm happy to talk about it now if you want. So it's not just men. It's we've gotten some things really ass backward in our society.
Yeah. Yeah. Please share.
I'll give you a simple example. What is the biggest, most horrible punishment we give to people in our society?
I mean, I'd say the death penalty.
Other than killing them, what's the next one down? Yeah.
Jail.
And in jail, what's the worst punishment you can get other than the death penalty?
I mean, life sentence.
But specifically what I'm looking for, Julie, is solitary confinement.
Oh,
right?
solitary. Yeah. Right.
So I had this aha a little while ago. The human animal is so deeply a social animal that the worst thing we can do other than killing somebody is to lock them in a room alone with themselves for an extended period of time. And one thing Sebastian says is people who are alone die. That's what happens.
Yeah.
And the truth is, in our country, the United States, we have an epidemic of loneliness. And that's a male and female issue. With men, when they're lonely, some percentage of them, I don't know which, we're trying to find as much as we can and learn as much as we can, but some percentage of them act out and kill other people and then kill themselves.
Yeah.
And women tend not to act out. There's no mass killings by women, right? It just doesn't, you just don't see gals show up at schools with AR-15s and kill 20 people. That's just not.
That's a good point.
Women do other things with their loneliness, other things with their despair, other things with their mental problems, but they generally don't tend to kill people, nowhere near the way men do. But regardless, we have an epidemic of loneliness in our country and in this part of the world. We're focused mostly on the United States because I just can't get my arm around the rest of the world right now. But,
yeah, right. We have enough here.
I think it's acute here. I think these things are really acute here in a way that they're, I'm originally from Canada. We have similar problems in Canada, but it's not at this level.
Yep.
Having traveled a lot, it's not at this level in Europe. They have other problems and all that. I'm not saying, I don't want to get into stupid discussion, but the loneliness problem, this man problem is exacerbated in the United States, best I can tell. And there are some real structural reasons. There's a reason we don't make friends. It's because of the architecture of suburbs. Ask yourself a simple question. Do I know my neighbors?
Yeah, it's funny. I'm thinking like I mean, personally, because I've made the effort because I am a social extra, I get energy from people, but I know a lot of people that don't. They thought it was crazy when we moved in. We invited everyone in the area to our house, open house. I didn't know anybody on the street. People thought we were nuts. And I thought, well, I'm going to be living here. I want to know who I'm around, but I know that I'm not in the norm. I know that.
That's right. And, we live in a box that is disconnected from everybody else.
Yeah.
Right. That's what paradise is. You move to the suburbs, you're up on the hill, you're in a gated community.
Yeah.
So, big fences make good neighbors, all of this kind of thinking. And so we live in a box, we get into a box with wheels. We drive, many of us over an hour, then we go sit in another box, stare at a screen, and we get back in the box with wheels, and then we come home. Well, that's life sucking right there. So the American suburb, if you believe Sebastian Junger, is killing us. And the way we work is killing us. Most people are highly disconnected and unengaged at work.
Yeah.
The amount of cynicism in the workplace is stunning. The amount of politics and all that, right? So there's just a lot of garbage piled on top of garbage. And I think one of the most powerful things I ever heard, Julie, is you can design your life any way you want. And when I understood that is to say, life isn't like the weather. Most people talk about life like it's like the weather. Yeah. And they speak, and I try to be a student of languaging, Julie, right? So like people say things like, how's life treating you?
Yeah. Right there.
How like life's this thing. Yeah. And like it's raining on my ass now. Now, right? Like I'm a victim of however life decides to treat me. Now look, I'm not some Pollyanna moron. I understand sometimes somebody you love gets cancer. Yeah. Sometimes somebody you love dies. Sometimes you get cancer. Sometimes you break bone skiing or whatever it is, right? Sometimes you have a financial emergency and it's terrifying, or you lose your job, or there are things that do happen to us, of course. Yep. But, and it's a big but, we can design our life. Yeah. I live exactly where I want to live. It's not an accident. I spend time exactly with the people I want to spend time with. It's not an accident. I do exactly the kind of air quotes work that I want to do. That's not an accident. Yeah. And I could keep going, right? My wife, Carrie, and I co-designed our relationship. We don't fight. We are the most we're ever out of flow is 15 to 20 minutes ever. And when we resolve a problem or a difference or an upset in our relationship, it's over. It doesn't come back. It doesn't linger like a fart in an elevator. It's done. Like we can have a fight, complete it, and we're holding hands and going for a walk 15 minutes later, and it's like it never happened, right? And I could give you a lot of other examples, but my life with that woman is designed. Our relationship, people say, oh, you're so lucky you have such a great relationship. Yeah, you guys are so easy with each other. Now, look, some of that's natural, and a lot of it is because she's awesome. But, and it's an important but, it's not an accident. Yeah. We decided we're not going to say, you know how couples say little shitty things to each other? For the fourth time, would you take out the fucking garbage? And all that sort of stuff, right? Men and women nag each other that way, right? And then they say little shitty things, or you're out to dinner with friends and you'll give each other a little bzz. It's not very flattering or not very nice. And those things just build up and build. We don't say those things ever to each other, around each other, with other people, or when the other's not present. When I'm with my guy buddies, if they're bitching about their wives, the vast majority of them don't, because I like to hang out with people who have healthy lives.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm around a group of guys, I'm like, oh, the one guy's talking about all the time, like, oh man, she just won't have sex with me. Right? Like, well, I got nothing to say. My wife has sex with me because we have a fucking relationship that works.
Right.
We had the sex discussion. Yeah. I've married a bunch of people, Julie. I'm a Dudeist priest in the Church of the Latter-day Dude. It's a religion founded on the teachings of the Big Lebowski. And so I
yeah.
Yeah, you go check out dudism.org. It's unbelievable. You can be an ordained minister. It only takes 2 seconds. You just have to promise to abide, and that's it. But anyway, I have married a bunch of people, and I love doing it. And I sit down with them, and I try to have a real conversation with them. And one of the things I always say to them, and it always makes their head snap back, I look at both of them in the eye and go, hey, is she the best sex of your life, and is he the best sex of your life? And they're like, what? I said, well, listen, in a month from now, we're going to stand up in front of everybody you know, and you are going to promise to love and cherish each other for the rest of time. And here's what I know. One of the elements, I don't care what anybody wants to say, of a good marriage is good, regular sex. I'm not an expert. I'm not a therapist. I didn't go to school. Read any book you want to read. That is true. 90-year-olds with successful marriages still have sex with each other if they physically can. Okay. So if you haven't figured out the sex part, you're fucked. And then, of course, money and children and all the other big topics, of course, right? But the sex one is one that most people never really talk about.
Yeah.
And on and on and on. And so my point is, we need to get to a place where more people understand that life isn't something that happens to you. This is something you can design. We can do it proactively. We can, and most importantly, the greatest thing in life is to co-create your life with people you love. And when you do that, you're not going to kill yourself. You're not running over people in a fucking rental van. You're the opposite, right?
Yeah.
My friend, do you know Jen Groover, Julie?
Oh my God. This is just a weird world. We just spoke last week. I both independently, and then I'm part of a group with John Vroman, and she did a call with us. But yeah, no, I've become friendly with her. She's awesome. She's awesome.
Yeah, and I've gotten to know her. She's been on my podcast. She's in Niche Down is a great example of somebody who's a legendary entrepreneur who's pulled multiple niche downs, and I think she's incredibly inspiring. And she's just got so much kick-ass attitude. It's unbelievable. Even her name, she doesn't want to be called Jen or Jennifer. We call her Groover. Right? She's like, I just love her. Anyway, she has this great saying. She says, hurt people hurt people.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah.
That's who does the hurting.
That's right.
Anyway, and so I think it's a very, very powerful idea. And I think co-designing, co-creating your life with people you love is a very powerful idea. And I think if you're willing to not be the victim in your own life, but be the designer of your own life, and then if you're willing to do that with other people, shit really changes. And for some reason, there's a lot of people in our country and in our world who, at one level or another, and I don't mean this pejoratively, they don't get that. That's not available to them.
Yeah. Well, you're not only speaking my language. I'm laughing because I think you'd be proud of me, Chris. I trademarked the category. I call myself a life designer. I trademarked it because it occurred to me when I did a lot of transformation in my life that it hit me one morning. I'm like, oh my God, I'm in charge of the whole thing. Like even what you said, when people say, how's life treating you? And just listening to that language, that is victim language right there. It's something like it's happening to you. So I made up this term. it reminds me of what you're saying, that we live in this Victimerica. That's what I call it. I feel like we live in Victimerica versus the only thing I could think of is Response America. Like we need to shift to, and this is something I take this seriously in my own life. Like anything that I don't like or that's not occurring in the way I want it, I'm like, created that, no question, 100%, everything, 100%.
Yeah, the minute you go, I'm responsible for everything in my life, I own it.
Yeah.
You look at our friend Hal and how he responded to cancer.
Oh God, yeah.
He owned his cancer. He just owned it. He's like, all right, I forget his exact words, but I choose this cancer. This is my cancer.
Yeah.
I got this cancer, and so who am I now that I got this cancer? I'm not gonna do the "was me" thing, right?
Yeah.
You can choose your cancer. Listen, I have been around many people as they were dying, many people that I love that were dying, and I've been in the room when they pass, and I know people who chose to die.
Yeah.
My grandmother on my father's side chose to go, and when she made that decision, I was in California. She was in Montreal. She had some shit go down. I was in Montreal for a while. She seemed to be stabilized, so I left. And then a few days later, she decided that was it. She was going to go. And my admin says, your dad's on the phone. And I pick up the phone, and it's my dad, Bruce. And he says, Nana's decided she wants to go on the morphine trip. In Canada, we're a little more proactive. We can be a little more proactive. And he said, do you want to talk to her? And I said, yeah, of course. And my Nana was very fucking straight talker, like candid as you can, my idols, Kim Scott, she calls it Radical Candor. That's the name of her book. That's an amazing book. Read fucking Radical Candor. Get her on if you can. She's unbelievable. Anyway, so my Nana, I say, hi, Nana, I love you. And she says, I love you too. And I won't be here when you get here.
Wow.
So we can even choose that, the ultimate, place where you could be as justified as you want to be dying.
Yeah.
She was, I think, 92, but like when you're 92, you don't go, oh, well, hey, I'm 92, man. It's been a hell of a ride. What the fuck? Let's just die. No, nobody who loves life wants to do that. And so you could be a victim. She was not that. She was my Nana was not a victim. And so bam, she made that choice. And so we can choose our circumstance, even if we don't like our circumstance.
Yeah. Yeah. Heck yeah. Oh my gosh. I'm like, I could speak with you another 5 hours. Like everything you're saying, I'm like, write the book. I want to be involved. I don't know how to be involved, but I will. I mean, I love this.
You want to do a mini series, Julie?
Yeah, please. I'm like, I have like 1,000 more questions. My head's like, all right, literally, I should show you my notes here. It's absurd. I'm really like, okay, which way? Because I have a lot of thoughts. I think what you're pointing to, just when you started with the whole, what the fuck's wrong with men, you're really pointing to, I think, the underpinnings, the rootings of like what Jen says, hurt people, hurt others. I think of that all the time. If you feel full and filled up in who you are, there's no way you would do that. There's just no way. And so what's really going on is this not feeling, feeling hurt and disconnected. And I mean, even the idea that the worst kind of treatment you can have is solitary confinement. I'd never thought of it that way. That's so fascinating. It just points right to how important connection is. I've read studies, you can die if you don't have social interaction. We're beings that need that. So what you're talking about, this is just
and if you study
so important.
If you study happiness, and I've been studying happiness for the last 12 years, and when I say studying happiness, what I mean is the research about happiness, not the happy horse shit, feel good mumbo jumbo,
right? Science behind it,
self-help bullshit. There's a comedian named I want to make sure I get her name right. I think her name is Ali Wong, and she has this special. She's pregnant while she shoots this stand-up special. I think it's called Cobra Baby. Ali Wong. She's pricelessly hysterical, and she talks about a self-help journey that she went on at one point in her life, and she puts all the big self-help gurus together. She calls them Deepak Oprah. She's like, I'm doing exactly what Deepak Oprah was telling me to do. Anyway, so I'm not talking about the Deepak Oprah stuff, right? I'm talking about the science-based research. Anyway, long story, way longer. Here's a fascinating fact. There is literally no such thing as a lonely centenarian. People who live to 100 or longer have great relationships, people for whom they matter and people that matter to them. They feel that they make a difference to those people and vice versa. And it might be 2 or 3 people, or it might be many more. The numbers don't matter. Introverted people is less, extroverted people is more. It doesn't matter. But when we are in relationships that matter, we matter. And when we're not, we don't. It's that simple.
So well said. Well, and the more that we're in our boxes, be it in the house or in the car, like you said earlier, there's so much opportunity for isolation if you're not watching out for it. And that's the thing I think about a lot. Most people don't realize they're designing their life every moment. They don't realize it. And so you end up designing this crappy, isolated, non-present life where you feel like a victim because you don't know it.
Yes. And, to young people who say like, I don't know what to do with myself, or I'm lonely, or I'm bored, or I'm upset, or I'm depressed, or, whatever sort of less than awesome way they might be experiencing life. I always just say to them, okay, go out your front door and make a difference.
Yeah.
Like we live 2 blocks from the beach. My wife and I go for a walk every day to the beach. And one of the things I do, I pick up the fucking cigarette butts because I know if I don't, the otters are going to eat them, or the seals, or whatever. And they're toxic. And some asshole, when you live 2 blocks from the beach, when it rains, guess where the water drains to? The Pacific Ocean.
Yeah.
So look, you get a dopamine hit in your brain when you pick up a cigarette butt. I went for a run on the beach this morning. There was a plastic bottle cap. I picked that up. That's going to go in the ocean. We have a piece of, we have a plastic island in the middle of the Pacific that's roughly twice the size of Texas. So I don't want the bottle cap in the ocean. That's a big enough problem. So I picked that shit up and put it in the garbage. You feel better about yourself when you did that. When you go to the grocery store, get off your fucking phone. I have to say this to myself, so I don't mean this in any holier than thou way whatsoever. But I'm not but hey, it doesn't fucking matter. Like, what's up with the tweets, right? Keep your phone in your pocket. Look at the person behind the checkout and say, "How you doing, man?"
Yeah.
Like our corner market, we know everybody that works there. When I walk in there, the gal that runs the place, I go behind the counter and we have a hug and a kiss. It's like cheers over there, right? It's like, be in the world. I've come to this, maybe it's overly simplistic, but it works for me anyway, which is you're either making a difference in the world or you're making it worse. So like people who don't know what to do with your life, great. Go out and walk out in the world, pick up a cigarette butt. When somebody walks by you on the street, look them in the eye, gently, nice, gentle eyes, smile at them and say, "Good afternoon," and see what fucking happens.
Yeah. It's awesome. I'd love to do a documentary someday. Just came back from the Illuminate Film Festival, all these films on living consciously. Hal's film was in there. Joe Polish's film, Black Star, was in there. And I think it'd be so cool. Maybe we'll create it to have, I would love to have something that that shows the science behind this, and that shows this, like, following someone really doing that. Even just if you could measure the dopamine levels or measure what happens in a day when you do, when you do nothing versus when you just pick up a cigarette butt or say hi, like what literally shifts in your brain, because it makes all the difference. Makes all the difference.
All of the science, and this is something that Sebastian helped educate me about. All of the science says the person doing the good thing gets a bigger psychological and chemical brain reward than the person receiving the good thing.
Yeah.
So, for example, one of the things I like to do, Carrie and I started to do this around the holidays several years ago, and now I just randomly do it all the time. You walk into a coffee shop and you get yourself a coffee and a sandwich or whatever. Drop a 20 in the tip jar. Like, buy $15 worth of lunch and put a 20 in the tip jar and see what happens. Sometimes I'll put a Benjamin in there. Yeah.
That's awesome.
And like, you change someone's day.
Yeah.
When you put a 20 in the tip jar.
$20 makes a huge, that's so great. It's a great tip for those listening. Like, seriously, and what is that $20? And you probably change that whole person's perception of what's possible. Like, oh, there are generous people in the world. That's new belief.
Yeah. And like, we have a wonderful garden, and Carrie grew up on a small orchard, a small ranch. And her dad is incredible, and he runs the last working orchard in San Jose. And so her and her sisters got it, deep, the whole farming, gardening, all of that. So we have a wonderful garden, and everything grows here in Santa Cruz like crazy. And so we got shit growing like mental. We have 6 hens. They fucking make an egg almost every day. They're amazing. By the way, they're the greatest pets in history. Like, any dog, any cat you've ever had that you've loved, hens, chickens are as good, and in some ways better. I mean, they're just the most loving, incredible, funny personality, like the whole thing. Anyway, so we got fruit, and we got vegetables, and we got eggs, and we got a lot of shit going off, and we can't consume all this stuff. So, like, our neighborhood is included in our garden. We give fucking shit. We give that shit away all the time. And sometimes, like, we don't, like, Carrie will put together like a bucket of lemons and just put them at the driveway and say, free lemons. Right. And those things are easy to do. Right. We all have, whatever the thing is.
Yeah.
We all have something that's easy that can make somebody else feel good. So go in the world and make other people feel good and see what happens.
It's awesome. It's a great quote. It's a tweetable. You're either making a difference or you're making it worse.
Yeah, and I think the people who are different are the ones that make the biggest difference.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. The missionaries, as we said earlier.
The missionaries, absolutely. And whether it's a missionary about creating your own niche to dominate, or whether it's a missionary about trying to make a difference in your local community.
Absolutely.
I have some friends who are cops. It's tough to be a cop today, because there's all the bad press around cops.
Yeah.
And look, I'm not suggesting that, when we all see a video of a cop doing something horrible in an unprovoked way, that we as a society shouldn't be outraged. Of course we should be outraged, and we need to take action against that stuff. And there's racism, and that stuff is very real, and I'm not Pollyanna about any of that. And here's what I know. The vast majority, 99.99999% of our law enforcement are wonderful people. And you put on a badge and a gun and a vest, and you go out there and you try to protect good people from bad people. I was hanging out with a buddy of mine who's a cop yesterday, and he's a special forces cop. So his squad is the squad. Once they once the detectives figure out that I'm the psycho killer, in the movies, the detectives take me down. That's not what happens in reality.
Right.
In reality, the detectives call and say, Christopher's the psycho killer. They get a warrant for my arrest, and my buddy's squad takes over, and they tail me, and they figure out the safest way possible to take me down. And so every time he goes to work, he is more than likely going to be taking out his service weapon.
Mm.
So I asked him, we'll call him Jimmy. I said, okay, you're a very special situation. I said, aren't there average sort of beat cops that can go their whole career without pulling out their weapon? He looked at me and he said, are you serious? And I said, I don't know. He said, the average beat cop in Northern California will take out her or his weapon at least twice a week.
Wow.
I had no idea. I was living in a whole fantasy world that I made up for myself.
Yeah.
I said, do you mean the cop that pulls me over for speeding in San Francisco on his motorcycle, which is the last time I got pulled over? By the way, he gave me a warning because I was nice and I didn't lie. I'll tell you that. I'll tell you the technique for getting out of tickets if you like. But I said, that beat cop on the motorcycle takes out his Glock twice a week? He said, absolutely. He said, I'll give you a simple example. I said, okay, you get a call on a domestic. There's something going on in a house. You don't even know what it is. Some neighbors heard something. You're going to a house. You show up at that house. You're there alone. Most of the cops don't have a partner, right? Maybe more are coming, but whatever. You show up first. That front door is open or ajar. You're going to go in that front door. You have your weapon in your hand because you don't know what you're going in for.
Mm.
It happens that often.
Wow.
So anyway, what's my point? Try being nice to a cop and see what happens. Cops hang out at Starbucks and coffee shops and shit. Or I'm nice to them when they pull me over. But I know why they pulled me over. I drive a 662 horsepower Shelby Cobra Mustang. I know why they pulled me over.
It's pretty obvious.
Yeah. Yeah.
No shock there. Yeah.
No shock there. And when they pull me over, you know what I do? I do exactly what they want me to do. I pull over. I put my hands on top of the steering wheel. You can see them. And I don't fucking move. I don't get my driver's license. I don't do anything. I put my hands there. I reach over and I hit the button for the window to go down. And I leave my hands on top of the steering wheel. And then when she or he comes up to me, this is what happened with the motorcycle cop. He comes up to me and he says, and I say, I don't even wait for him. I say, good afternoon, officer. Not mad, nothing. I was speeding, I know. He goes, do you know why I pulled you over? Which is often what they say. Most people lie. Do you know that? Most people lie to the cop. Don't lie. I don't lie. I said, yes, sir. I'm pretty sure I do. And he said, what's that? I said, I was speeding. I was going about 40. And I'm guessing that's not the speed limit around here. And he goes, do you know what the speed limit is? I said, is it 30? And he goes, no, it's 25. And you were doing 45. I was trying to make the light get out of the city of traffic. I told him that. And he goes, well, thanks for being honest. Slow down and have a great day.
Yeah.
And you know what I said to him? I said, sir, thank you for your service and God bless you.
That's awesome.
So, what's my point? Like, I'm almost getting to a place, Julie, where I think one of the things we need to do in school is teach each other how to be nice to each other.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
If you get back to the man thing, if you and I are going out to dinner and we're walking into a restaurant, I'm holding the door open for you. Because if I don't, Jackie's going to whack me. Jackie being my mother, right?
Because Jack get those Carrie. That's okay.
Yeah. My mother told me from a very young age, you have to be a little gentleman. Ladies first. You open the door. You say please and thank you. Like all that good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the, I'm just kind of threading through what you're saying, starting from the beginning, it's being authentic. It's not lying. When you're at the cop, you just, I know why I was pulled over. It's pretty obvious. And it's being kind. It's being nice, doing the right thing. These are such basic things, but it's funny. It's not funny, actually. It feels like it's the underpinnings that are missing. Like this is what's missing. And
Yeah. And we have to ask ourselves, what kind of world do we want to live in?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. I live in a community where when you walk around, people say hello and good morning. People are generally safe around here.
Yeah.
This is a community where 12-year-old kids go surfing by themselves.
Wow.
And the rest of the lineup, that is to say the other people out surfing, have that kid. And that parent of that kid knows that. There's not a fucking chance in hell that 12-year-old, 8-year-old kid, that
Yeah.
anything's going to happen to that kid with everybody in the water. We all know what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah. Community. Yeah. Well, and it goes back to isolation, it's having people's back. And there's a lot to think of here. I'm just thinking the people listening, like what can you start doing? Well, pick up the cigarette butts, leave a $20 tip. You get pulled over, be honest, right? Be kind. I love that.
Be honest, you were speeding. That's what you were doing.
Well, right. How can you be, people get angry and it's like angry. I just got to be honest with you, I went through 2 lights yesterday. I was taking my kids to like 15 different things. And it's ironic. My mom, there was an event. My mom is being honored. She's 75 today. And the reason she's being honored is because
what's her name, Julie?
My mom is Helene.
So it's Helene's birthday today and she's 75?
Yeah, today. Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Lived in Montreal for years. Yep.
Oh, did she?
Yeah.
Well, tell her a big happy birthday for me. And I wish her another legendary 75 years.
I will totally. Well, it's funny. I spoke about her at this event and I said, there's this quote that the highest form of wisdom is kindness. And I said, my mom got that. The reason she was honored is she could not be more loving or kind, and people respond to that. And there was a woman there who was 105, and I said, Anna, what's your secret? She said, just being nice and kind to people. I'm like, dude, this is what people are missing this. So it's really apropos. Anyhow.
It's like women in business and women in politics, right? The way I look at it is, all right, well, guys have been running the show for a long time, and it is the way that it is. Fuck it. Get them all out. Let women run it and see what they do for a while. Let's just have a change. Let them have it. Now, by the way, I think there is a corollary to this that's important, which is I don't think you can just be nice all the time.
Yeah, for sure.
I think sometimes you have to look somebody in the eye and you have to say, hey, listen, I got to tell you something. The work you did, shitty.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. I think so. I'm not one of these, everybody gets a cookie and all. No, the opposite. So I think there needs to be a high bar that we set for ourselves. Yeah. And I think we need to be, to quote my friend Kim, radically candid with people. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So here's the way I think about it. If I put whipped cream on dog shit and serve it to you, are you going to know it's dog shit? Yeah. And it doesn't matter how much fucking whipped cream I put on it, right? And so everybody can smell dog shit, smell inauthenticity. Yeah. Or, in a work situation, if you tell somebody they did a good job when they did a shit job, or if you tell a child that, you get a cookie too, and participation awards and all that is the worst thing there is, yeah. I think. So that's on one dimension. And on the other dimension, in a very real way, peace comes from strength. So I am a peace-loving person. I haven't been in a fight outside of a dojo since I was 10 or 12 years old. But I'll tell you what, if I'm sitting at Verve Coffee in Santa Cruz and you walk in the front door with an AR and you think you're going to do bad shit, it's going to be the worst thing you ever did, because I'm going to shove that AR up your ass. And so I think the other component of this is we have to be real about, being candid with people about what the situation actually is, as opposed to having, in business, sometimes we call it happy ears. Yeah. And then I also think peace comes from strength. There are bad people in the world. As Jacob Dylan famously said, evil is alive and well. And you need to know that if you do bad or you do evil, there's going to be circumstances, and in some cases there's going to be physical circumstances. If you try, I live in a beach community. The weather is beautiful. I mean, there are everybody's naked on the beaches now, or close to it. The new outfits the ladies wear on the beaches are very close to naked. And here's what I know about all that: nothing bad happens.
Yeah.
And if anybody tried to do anything bad, it's going to be a really bad day for them. And so we as a society, I think myself as an individual, we also have to be willing to say to ourselves, I stand for peace. I stand for the fact that my gal and kids and your kids and other people, that women and men, of course, as well, can walk down the street at whatever time of night, or these, stunningly attractive women, if they choose to wear these, almost nothing, they can do that and nothing bad's going to happen. All of it, right? Because that's the world we want to live in. And we also have to know there are going to be bad people. And those bad people need to know that if you try to do that bad shit here, it's going to be way worse for you. And so I think, so the be nice, be kind mentality is very, very important. Yeah. However, it's not about being weak.
Yeah.
It's not about being disengaged.
Yeah.
It's not about being laissez-faire.
Yeah. It's like a soup with ingredients. You need that, but you also need, what I'm hearing too, and I believe in this, is inner strength and knowing how to stand up to anything that's really not acceptable, not okay, and frankly, not human. Not.
Look, 1 in 4 young women in our country has some kind of sexual attack at college. 1 in 4. I believe all women coming out of high school going into college should train in some kind of self-defense for their last year of high school. And I'll tell you, the young ladies in my life, they spend some time training with Uncle Christopher before they go to college.
Smart. Yeah.
Because they need to know how to stand up for themselves. They need to be aware. So in the be nice to everybody conversation, which I think is an incredibly powerful conversation, it isn't an excuse to be a Pollyanna and to not be clear about some of the realities of the world that we live in, and to do the kinds of things we need to do to take a stand against evil.
Yeah. Well, that's why you need to write this next book. What the fuck's wrong with men? I think it's a winning.
Started work on it.
It's a winning combo. Yeah. No, it's exciting. I'm already one of your, they always say, get your first 1,000 true fans. I think you have like a million times that, but I'm certainly one of them, and we'll be following up on what all the things you're doing. This is an important conversation. I'm honored and really grateful that we got to have even a piece of it here. And I'm with you, as a female.
Actually, you want to know the brutal, candid truth?
Yeah, please.
I haven't talked about this new book, publicly yet. I've sort of hinted around it a little bit on Legends and Losers, but I haven't done anything. I haven't shared it other than with some friends and some family. So this is the first podcast I've even talked about it on.
Damn. I'm honored. I am very honored you chose mine and me and everyone listening. And I'm sure I'm going to speak for everyone listening. I've got some amazing people that tune in, like just change makers, incredible men and women that I've gotten to know that are listening. And I know they're grateful too. And this is an important conversation. I'd love to be involved any way I can support you, be a part of it. I think it's highly important. And as a female that, I'm out to do big things to make a big difference in the world, I definitely see myself as a missionary of, for me, it's around really people knowing their worthiness and feeling like they have the ability to and know how to design their best life, what you're talking about. Because I really believe if everyone was out there trying to make a difference, whether it's picking up a cigarette butt or whatever that is, this would be a different place. And I certainly applaud you and honor you, what you're doing. I think it's real important. Real
thank
damn
you.
fun.
Look, I, so I don't think I'm any better than anyone else. There's a whole bunch of things in my past that are embarrassing and I would be ashamed of. So I don't think I'm any better than anybody else. What I do think is some of us have been lucky to to be what Maslow called to have some level of self-actualization,
Yeah.
some level of self-awareness, some level of knowing who I am, knowing who I'm not, some ability to try to improve myself, some ability to try to learn. I'm a very curious person. So that's kind of on one dimension, that I try to be somebody who's curious about life and about the world and about other people. And I love the world that we live in, right? I go surfing and there's otters, like it's magical, right?
Mm.
And there's amazing people in the world. And also I'm somebody who has had some financial success. So I think if you're somebody like that, at least the way I process the transaction is, I don't worry about me, right? Early in my life, the question was, is Christopher going to make it? I
Mm.
have what I call it dysfucklia. I have dyslexia, dyscalculia, ADHD, executive function disorder, and bipolar, right? That's
Mm.
5. I put it all together. I call it dysfucklia. I know what it's like to want to kill yourself, right? I've
Mm.
wanted to kill myself. I know what it's like to feel, it's like that old song when we were kids. Nobody likes me. Everybody hates me. I'm going to eat some worms.
Yeah.
You just feel like the whole world doesn't get you and you don't belong. And maybe maybe you did something, that was stupid and whatever it is, right? I know that disenfranchised feeling. I know that disempowered feeling. I know that suicidal feeling. I know that feeling of utter incompetence or stupidity, right? They didn't catch dyslexia until I was fucking 21 years old. Guess how school went? Fucking wasn't fun for a lot of it, right?
Yeah, I'm
So I
sure.
get that stuff. But my point is, I think those of us who get to a place where, for the most part, we've answered the question, am I going to be okay?
Mm.
We've sort of got our shit basically handled. My shit's handled. Now, my dear friend Bix Bixen says you can't piss once in life and have it handled. And so pissing and having your shit together are very similar in that regard. But for the most part, I have my shit generally together. So what's my point? My point is, those of us who are lucky enough to get to that place where your shit is generally together, I think we have an obligation to make a difference.
Yep.
Because we have real problems in our world. We have real loneliness. We have real sadness. We have environmental problems. We have massive injustice in our legal system. We have massive injustice in our financial system. The percentage of the wealth on planet Earth that goes to the top 1% is terrifying. There's and lots of others, right? There's a lot of things we as human beings need to go get on to make a difference in our world. And that can feel overwhelming. But that said, those of us who generally are okay, I think if we don't make a difference, then who the fuck is? It's got to be the people who generally, for the most part, have their shit handled, who can then go out and help handle other shit. It's hard to handle other shit, especially big shit, if your shit's not handled, right? And there's a lot of people for whom their shit's not handled and they need our help, right? And they need our empathy. But if you're in a position to make a difference, I think you have an obligation to be that kind of person. And so all that is to say, Julie, I'm just trying to be the guy my mother thinks I am.
Jackie in Toronto.
Yeah.
Is that
Trying to
where she
make
lives?
Jackie in Toronto happy. Yeah. Or not happy, proud.
Proud. Well,
right.
I
think as a child, what do we want? We want to make our parents proud, right? I want my dad, Bruce, to hopefully say to his friends and anyone else he talks to or whatever, I'm proud of my son. My son's a good man. And I want my mom to say the same thing.
Well, just based on the conversation and what I know of you, I think Jackie and Bruce, that sounds like a movie. That sounds
like a Bruce Springsteen.
Yeah, like, hold on. That sounds like sounds like a good song.
Jackie met Bruce at the ice cream stand.
Yeah,
you know,
definitely. It's all,
yeah. Only 16.
Right.
You know, or a John Mellencamp song.
Yeah, I was thinking John Mellencamp.
About Jack and Diane.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Jack.
little ditty about Jackie and Bruce.
It's the Canadian version.
Yeah, exactly. Throw some A's and some couches and some abouts into it.
I know. I was like, where are your O's? I went to school in upstate New York. I used to go to Toronto all the time. I'm like, your O's are actually kind of not so Toronto-ish anymore. But anyhow. I've
lived in California for 22, 23 years. So
yeah.
It wasn't anything I consciously did, but of course your accent evolves just naturally. Right. Although after a couple of beers, the fucking AAs come flying out and the couches. You know, if there's drinking and other Canadians around, it's like whoop, you go straight back.
It changes right back. Well, I can't imagine how Jackie and Bruce are not super duper proud of you. I mean, it's I will say as we kind of wrap, that I think what you said is so important. And I was thinking about you brought up Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And the truth is, if you're anywhere above kind of the base, like, you know, you said, if you got your shit handled, if you've got shelter and you feel like you got your basics taken care of, you can make a difference at any level. And I agree with you. Once you start getting to that self-actualization, that higher, I mean, I feel the same way. The more I have my shit together, the more I want to give. And I feel like it's my duty. I can't imagine not giving back. And it's certainly, I mean, you're doing that at a mega level. It's really inspiring. It really is.
Well, it's very, very kind of you to say. And, you know, it sounds selfless if you believe Sebastian about research and the dopamine and the other happy chemicals we get when we do good things. It's probably incredibly not selfish. It's probably incredibly selfish, actually. Or whatever I said. But it's doing good shit is selfish because it makes you feel really awesome about yourself. But
yeah.
But you know, I also think, and this may be, you know, not the thing to say given the name of your podcast. Fuck myself. Like, who cares? Like, I'm not that interested. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not, yes, it's great to feel good. It's great, you know, when we get emails and, you know, all this people say unbelievable things to me, which is incredible. And I love it and all that. But, it's not about that accolade. It's not about that. It's not about that. That's not interesting to me. What's interesting to me is I just watched my wife work for, you know, 3 straight weeks, 18 hours a day to put on a giant march in San Francisco for sensible gun laws in our country.
Yeah. Wow. It's awesome.
You know, and by the way, I'm a gun owner.
Yeah.
But our gun laws are nuts. I mean, I don't, it's somewhere around 80 or 90% of gun owners that think our gun laws are nuts. Like, come on. Like, this is nuts. We need to get on this, right? Yeah. And I'm not an expert on what we need to do. I have some ideas like everybody, but you just can't have an IQ larger than your shoe size to say, like, we have to do something to make sure that people who mentally unfit can't get guns. Like, come on. So, you know, what matters, you know, Carrie got no cookies, no prizes, no nothing. The number of people that know that she did what she did for that march was her friends and family, period, because we saw her do it and we all volunteered to support her. We had friends fly up from LA to be her at service of her, who work in the event business, who know what needs to go down, so that when she's there with the walkie-talkies and the clipboards and she's telling us, go here, do that, do that, we are her minions, right? Those are the only people who know. So it's not about like the accolades and the aren't you a good, that stuff is less interesting. What is more interesting is, are we as individuals, are we as a small town, are we as a city, are we as a country, are we as a human race, are we moving forward in the right direction or not?
Yeah.
And am I playing some role? Am I doing, look, this has been on my mind a lot because of all the suicide, and I went back and re-listened to the Sebastian episode, so he's been on my mind a lot. One of the other things that he says is, America asks nothing of you. If you live in Switzerland, there's mandatory military service. If you live in Israel, there's mandatory service. America asks nothing of you. He even makes the point, you don't even have to pay your fucking taxes, because if you don't, we'll just put you in, a generally nice jail, and we'll feed your ass, and you're in jail, but we'll take care of you. You didn't pay your taxes, we'll still take care of your fucking ass. And so America literally asks nothing of us. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I'd like to change that, but let's say we never change it structurally.
Right.
Then culturally, I wish would change it. That there's look, I'm an immigrant to this country. I think you have to do good things if you're going to be here. I think you have, that's why I love entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship for many of us is not a way up, it's a way out. Entrepreneurs create innovation. That's where all the patents come from. Entrepreneurs create jobs. That's where all the job growth comes. With all due respect to IBM and fucking GE, that's not where the job growth comes. It comes from small entrepreneurs, small businesses that grow and do good things and make a difference. Who are the businesses that sponsor the baseball team in your community? It ain't fucking IBM. No disrespect to IBM, who's a wonderful company, but it's the pizza shop. It's the local grocery store. It's the builder. It's the plumber. It's whatever, right? Those are the real people making a difference, and we need to be those people. We need to be the people who say, I am going to in a positive way. The problem we have in Washington, and I don't have a political discussion, is we don't know how to have a conversation anymore.
Yeah.
We don't. And we've forgotten that we agree on like 80, 90% of it, Republican, Democrat. I have very seriously Democrat friends. I have very seriously Republican friends. I'm a registered independent. I try to think on a issues basis, not on a fucking whose fucking party am I in because my grandfather was in that party. I could give a fuck. I think the Democrats are idiots and assholes sometimes, and I think the Republicans are idiots and assholes sometimes. And other times, I think they're awesome. And here's what I do know. We need the dialogue. We need the discussion. I don't want to live in a country run by Democrats exclusively, and I don't want to live in a country run by Republicans exclusively. It'd be horrible either way. And we'd be crushed. The country wouldn't function. We need to fight with each other about what is our gun policy, what is our healthcare policy, what is our immigration policy, what is our environmental policy, how much should we be taxed, where should we spend this money, what is our foreign policy. We need to have arguments about these things, but we need to argue with each other in a positive way, in a respectful way. You and I might not agree on all of those things. Tim Rode and I have differing opinions on these things. We love each other, right? And the truth is, if you were to draw, his opinion about something and my opinion about something in a circle, there'd be a huge overlap of those two circles. And here's the thing that like in our country, no one's going to disagree with. No one's going to disagree that if you live here, loving America is important, and you probably do. Very few people live in America hate America. Yeah. This is a great fucking country. I don't say it's the greatest country in the world because I don't want to be pejorative to other countries. There are other legendary countries, and we can be proud of the United States without dissing anybody else. I love Canada, an incredible country. So I can't say America is the greatest country in the world, but what I do know is there are things that are possible here that are not possible in other places, including Canada. And so our country requires us to do a lot fucking more than nothing.
Amen to that. Well, I feel like just drop the mic right there. Just boom.
All right. Well, why don't we drop the mic, Julie?
That was, yeah. I can I add one quick thing though that came to my mind, and then we'll drop the mic. Well, it's interesting. You know, I've had this conversation. I've heard Jeff Hoffman talk about this, and then being part of John Berghoff's the Flourishing Leadership Institute with the LEAF program. Do you know much about the appreciative inquiry
I don't know
approach?
the program.
So he runs
I know about it. Yeah, tell me what you want to tell me.
Well, you know, it's what he's doing, and a lot of us are doing now and getting trained to do, are leading conversations, new conversations with not just companies, but with teams, with government, with groups that are influential, and using this appreciative inquiry approach. So it's not saying there aren't, it's not sticking your head in the sand and saying there aren't problems, but it's a new kind of conversation where you get Democrats and Republicans together and you get the diversity of opinions, and it's a good thing. You want that because from that you get strengths from everybody. And so anyhow, it's this, I know Jeff talked about this at one of our Quantum Leap masterminds about working right now in Washington, trying to come up with solutions using the strengths of the group and looking at new ways of having conversations, because whatever is going on is not working. So anyhow, just being part of that.
Yeah, that's right. And there's that, there's that famous Einstein quote where he says the problems of today are not going to be solved at the same level of thinking that created them. Right. So, and look, here's the other thing, Democrat and Republican. Is there any political position that you had at one point in your life that you now think the opposite, or you've meaningfully changed your opinion about? Well, if that's not true, if you had an opinion about something politically oriented, a political issue topic, guns, healthcare, employment, immigration, you pick whatever it is, when you were 20 and you're 40 and you don't have some of that stuff where you've quote unquote evolved, then you're a fucking moron. Really?
Well said. No, I mean, we're supposed to evolve. We're supposed to be evolving all the time.
One of my favorite quotes is, if you haven't changed your mind lately, how do you know you have one?
Oh my God. This has been one of the more insightful conversations. I feel like after this, I'm going to just need to sit in my meditation chair and literally just hold my stone, hold myself, and just breathe and take it in. This has been so powerful and illuminating. You're awesome.
Well, I'm glad, Julie, that I made you want to cuddle up to a stone.
I know, I'm laughing. I realize that people don't know that when I meditate, I hold a quartz that I have that sounds a little different. It's my practice. It's whatever, my way of grounding.
Whatever floats your boat. Who am I to be judgmental of a gal who wants to rub her stone?
Right. It's a very special stone. Okay.
It's a very lucky stone.
It's a very lucky stone. Oh, you got to be able to laugh at yourself with yourself. I'm just, for all those that are not watching this, I want to say that to sum it up, I think your sign in front of you is a good reminder to just do epic shit. Just make a difference and do some epic shit, whether it's picking up a butt, whatever the heck it is. Let's get off our butts and do some epic stuff in the world.
But in a Me Too sense, you can't just randomly rub somebody's butt. You have to have permission first.
That's right. Get permission to rub a stone or someone's butt or whatever you're doing.
If you rub something, it's always good to make sure that something wants you to rub it.
Good. Well said. No matter what that is.
Whether it's a kitty cat or your stone or some human being that you want to feel like rubbing.
Oh my gosh. Well, I just realized I know what gift I'm going to send you. I'm going to send you a stone because you don't have that yet. I'm looking at the gifts.
That would be great.
You're going to have a stone.
I'm reminded when we were kids, there was this phenomena. I don't know if you remember it. I think you're probably a lot younger than I am, but called the pet rock. It was like a craze for one summer, and people were buying $25 fucking pet rocks in these boxes and stuff. And and so I remember my sister wanted a pet rock, and I said, look, How about I just go outside and catch you a wild one?
By the way, that entrepreneur is brilliant. Whoever came up with the pet rock.
That's some very serious category design right there. Talk about creating demand where there was none.
That is brilliant. I would
Yeah.
like to come up with something like that. That's awesome. Yeah, well, I will catch you a rock. I will make sure to send you a pet rock for you that you two can stroke and have
Thank
and
you.
rub against. Oh my gosh. I hope you'll come back. This has been so much fun and so enlightening.
Of course, my pleasure.
You're awesome. You are hashtag a badass in every way, shape, and form. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. Christopher, it's been amazing. I appreciate
Thank you, Julie. The pleasure's all mine. Thank you for the incredible work you do in the world and who you are and your youing of your youest of your you-ness. It's awesome. Thank you.